that money and give you the return of investment. So it can be stressful for a fund if it has a lot of dry powder and it's coming closer and closer to the end.
We're here today to talk about a very cool word, dry powder.
Indeed.
So stay tuned, because in this episode you will learn exactly what it is and how you can know the market and know what's happening in the startup world.
How it impacts you when you're trying to fundraise, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is going to be so interesting. So do not press the stop button here. Let's start.
Yeah.
This episode, we are powered by the LE Fitness, which we are very, very happy about.
Yeah, amazing. Well, dry powder, that is the capital, the money that a venture capital firm has committed and not yet invested into any startups. Mm-hmm. So if I raise a venture capital fund of 200 million and I've used 50 million and invested in brilliant startups that I have found, then I have 150 million in dry powder. And the chance of you getting funded and what terms. Because the amount of dry powder on the market will have a direct implication for how easy it is for the startups to access that capital.
Yeah.
And that means I will be out deal sourcing. And if you look broadly at the general market, if there is a lot of VCs sitting on dry powder, there's a lot of dry powder. That means it will be easier for you startups to access capital. There is more capital to be deployed and there can be more competition about the good deals. So if you're a great startup, you might get approached by many VCs because they all have dry powder, all want to get in on that deal. That means you can perhaps retain more control. You might be able to raise your valuation and get other preferable terms and conditions.
Okay, so what I understand now is the dry powder is the money or the things that are left after.
Still, that they can still deploy into startups,
still
okay. Invest.
But why dry powder?
Yeah, that is historical.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because when you were shooting your cannons, you could only use dry powder to fire, and if the powder was wet, it was not usable, it was worthless. So dry powder you can shoot, you can do your investments. You have your guns ready.
You have your guns ready. That's so cool. I understand it. I understand totally.
Yeah. So it's ready to fire, do the investment. And we talked about on the first episode that any VC fund has a limited lifespan. So in relation to a fund, it can be a sign of power if you have a lot of dry powder. You raise the fund, you close it fast, you have a lot of dry powder, you're out looking brilliant. But the clock is ticking. Your investors want you to deploy that money and give you the return of investment. So it can be stressful for a fund if it has a lot of dry powder and it's coming closer and closer to the end, which means that it might deploy less favorable terms or not be too opportunistic, so forth. So having a lot of dry powder, power, but it can also be an issue. And it can also tell that you might not be the most attractive VC, so you might not get in on the best deal, so you might have a tougher time deploying. You might have gotten a bad rap because you were involved with a failure, or one of your partners is known for not treating the founders of the companies nicely. So it's kind of a sensitive topic.
Sensitive things. You need to be on top. Yeah,
indeed.
But what happens if you have like a lot of dry powder left and the clock has been ticking a bit too long? What happens then? And you need to close the fund.
Well, worst case, you need to renegotiate with the investors, or they only get their capital back, or hardly that. So, I mean, if you close the fund as a failure, it will be harder for you to raise a new fund, of course. It can also be that you have a specific possibility to prolong the lifespan of the fund for a couple of more years, so you have some more time. And you can negotiate about a rollover, putting it into another fund. There are solutions, but they are not preferable, because then it takes more time to get the return of the investment, if at all. So you can. And if you look at the other way around, what happens to the markets if there's a little dry powder, not a lot? Well, that means it's harder to gain access to the capital. It can also indicate that the investors have less faith in the startup ecosystem, in the markets in general. They're clinging on to their monies. So then the climate will be rougher, and you might need to accept even less favorable terms in order to get the VC to pick you.
Okay, but are the VC funds open about that they have a lot of dry powder?
No.
They are not.
Good question. No. So it all depends on what you know. Sometimes they toot their horns. When they close the fund, I closed a 5 million fund in half a year. Wow, I'm brilliant. Well, then if you look at that fund 2 years later and you look at their homepage, you should expect a lot of logos on it, and you should be able to, through different official sources, be able to trace if they have deployed that capital or not. So typically you can find out.
You can find out,
Yeah,
but they're not
typically.
open. Okay.
And it's also important to have dry powder so you can do follow-on investments. As a startup, if you're getting approached, it might be more attractive to choose the VC that can promise you that if you reach your benchmarks and your KPIs, they do have dry powder put aside that they can utilize for you to support you along the way.
Wow, so the dry powder is the guns are loaded.
The guns
We're ready
are
to invest.
loaded.
Wow.
Exactly.
It's so cool terms and lingo in the business world.
Agree.
So I hope really this is information that you can use and understand also what dry powder is when people talk about it. Because, I mean, a lot of things in the business world is knowing the words.
Indeed.
It's power.
It's fun.
It's really fun. I learn so much sitting with Kat every week.
Thank you.
So we see you next time. And don't forget to like and subscribe our channel for more business law to help you gain knowledge and also good strategies to keep your business to the best heights ever.
You are great.
You are great.
We love
Keep on
you.
rocking out there.
Bye-bye.
Bye.